You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in beautiful Northport, Florida. I'm actually sitting along the side of the road up here in North Carolina and broadcasting live. So hopefully everything is streaming well on Facebook and also on the radio station. So if anybody can give us some feedback, I would appreciate it deeply. The first attempt to go mobile with everything set up on my dashboard, and Peter just happens to be the special guest that's coming on board to treat me to a conversation. So how you doing, Mr. Bartolotta?
I'm doing great, Mr. Rawlings. How are you?
Not too bad at all. That it's been an interesting couple of weeks in Northport, and we've had some Warm Mineral Springs conversations. We've had, last week we had Peter on, and Pete, he talked about the vote and different things that were going on there, and you've got some insight on that too. So I'm kind of going to let you step up and take us down a conversational path that you want to do.
Okay. Okay, you mean the vote on Warm Mineral Springs?
Yeah, what's your gut instinct on that as a citizen who's been extremely involved in Northport at many different levels, and you also ran for office.
Yep.
So you've got some insight there. So kind of give how you have interpreted some of these things.
I'm interpreting it as the residents of Northport, watch out. We're going down a real slippery path right now. From what I could gather, and it's in documents that the city has developed, not that I've developed, we're going to lose Warm Mineral Springs. We're going to be on a 30-year plan to lose money, and you're going to fund it through taxpayers, on the taxpayers' backs. The majority of the Northport residents that I've spoken to, just about all of them, have not been to Warm Mineral Springs, have no plans on going there. It's a great resource. It's got great potential, but it's not attractive to the residents of the city. So the residents aren't enjoying it as much. A lot of the feedback we're getting is coming from people who live in Warm Mineral Springs, around it, or the Ortiz and what have you, and that's not a part of the city, but their voices are being heard and followed by your city commissioners. So, we're going down a path. Three commissioners voted to move forward with it. Pete Emmerich and Barbara Langdon voted not to. A second thing that makes me really concerned as a resident is the meeting they had in February. They said they were going to have a workshop to discuss this. Well, the workshop turned into a special meeting. Now, for the residents who aren't aware of it, a workshop means you discuss something. You don't vote on anything. You just discuss it. And it's an opportunity for commissioners to come up with different ideas and discuss and have a dialogue about, whatever the subject is. And they're not pressured with having to vote or not vote. Well, I can tell you, from what I understand, 2 commissioners found out it was a special meeting on the day of the meeting. Now, a special meeting, they can vote, and they did vote. They voted to spend $20 million of your dollars to fix up the springs with no revenue potential identified. So, it's a slippery slope they're going down right now, and I think the voters need to really step up and get involved and watch what's going on. It's not good. And I've yet to find a commissioner who can, tell me what the game plan is, at least of the 3 that voted. They're making it a park, and a park doesn't generate money. And they're living on a wish list that says, somebody's going to come in and generate a lot of capital for the city, and I don't see it. I just don't see it. So that's one thing that I would ask the citizens to get involved in. Call your city commissioners, ask them to justify. If they look at the meeting back in February when they discussed the springs and staff presented the documents presented a fiscal impact of a loss of $3 million over 30 years. It's over $100,000 a year loss for 30 years. Where are they going to get that money from? And ask the commissioners to give you an answer. You would deserve that answer. And then let me know, because nobody's been able to answer it for me.
Well, I've not taken this stance yet, and so I want to try something on you,
Okay.
Sort of like the devil's advocate. Okay. Sure. I want to approach this with the mindset that we had a deteriorating park prior to purchase. Okay. When we had the joint purchase with the county, that War Memorial Springs was on its way down as far as maintenance was concerned back then. It still continued down that path, with some band-aids being applied now by the city of Northport workers. And I understand that comes out of a different budget, and we can talk about that in a little bit, because I totally disagree with when you spend something, it should go into the budget, and you should count that as loss, not, oh, it doesn't count because it's in a different fund. I do disagree with anybody who says that it is 100% profitable. I haven't run into anybody yet who has been a business person who calculates things out of a different fund so they can show nothing but profit. I want somebody, Joe Luke, you were a business person prior to this. You even have said,
Hello.
Peter, keep on talking. He's frozen.
Okay. Yeah. Let me take, follow up on some of that comment. When the government generates income for the government, they do it through taxes and fees. That's basically where it comes from. They don't necessarily, even though there is some investments that they might make, that's not where the money comes from. So it's coming out of the taxpayers, whether they're Northport taxpayers, Sarasota County taxpayers, visitors. You've all been to a hotel and you paid a tourist tax. It's all coming out of the people's pocket. And government has a tendency to put them in buckets and say, well, that's not really, that's a surtax, and this is from this and this is from that. Well, it still comes out of our pockets. And misspending is misspending. You don't go into a project knowing you're going to lose money and tell the taxpayers you're going to make money. It doesn't work that way. They don't do that. And Stephanie Gibson just made a post up here that says capital improvement. It just dropped off. If you can get it back up. She said capital improvement is not a cost. Sure it is. It's an expense. Now, the Springs was not in the best of condition back when they bought it. I think that was in 2004 or 6. But it was in a lot better shape than it's in today. Now, however you want to slice it, the commission decided to spend money this year, I guess. Now they're going to put it in the budget. So watch it, folks. It's coming out of the budget. And they're taking it from other places, which you've got to ask as a resident, what am I not getting because you're spending that money on the Springs? And Marie, if you can keep the posts up there when the questions that are coming up, because I saw Commissioner McDowell said they didn't spend $20 million. It was 9.2 using surtax funds, not property taxes. Well, Commissioner McDowell, with all due respect, surtax is tax dollars. Property tax is tax dollars. Tourist tax is tax dollars. It's all tax dollars. It's coming out of the people's money. If you're going to, now you're not going to do things because of that surtax that could have gone to other areas. Now it can't because you're going to spend it on the Springs. The $9 million is just the short term. The $20 million is the full development plan that you guys seem to be approving. So I challenge anybody that brings up that says it's not taxpayers' money. So to John's point, it was bought and purchased as an economic engine by the city and the county. That was a good plan. The city commissioners in Northport at that time literally destroyed that plan. And the county turned around and said, we don't want to be in business with you anymore. I mean, that's the short story. So they backed out, and Northport paid them another $2.75 million, I think it was, to buy out their interest. And then I think whatever the commissions were at the time, it was converted to, now we're going to make it a park. Well, they bought it as an economic engine, and now and then it got turned into a park, and now we're spending taxpayers' money. The Parks Department, I think, is one of the biggest budgets in the city. That's scary. What are we getting out of it? What are we as residents getting out of this? And it's one thing to put a community park in your neighborhood that you can go to and relax and have a picnic or something. It's something else to build up a park that nobody in Northport uses. And I challenge the commissioners to do a poll of Northport residents. The next time somebody gets up and talks about Northport, I think the police officer that's there in the court, in the commission chambers, should look at an identification. Where do you live? So that we're listening to the people of Northport, not to the people who want to go to the Springs and live in different parts of the county, and maybe even from out of the country, for all I know. We don't know where they're living. So let's listen to residents and figure out what to do. And I'll right now, if it were my call, based on the way the city is managing it, I'd say sell it, get rid of it, and be gone. Give it to the county, sell it to the county, sell it to the private sector, whatever. But it's not an asset to Northport. Assets don't cost us $100,000 a year in losses. And I'm willing to listen to whatever Commissioner McDowell has to say on that, or Debbie, or Stephanie Gibson, or anybody else. If you have a question on it, feel free to pop it on. And Marie, I can't see them all, so you're gonna have to tell me which ones are up there. Let's see, what else? I guess we still don't have John, huh? Yeah, okay, John Cook. Put a sign-in sheet at the front desk. How difficult, John, that's perfect. How difficult is that? When they don't know who's a resident and who's not. Maybe they don't want to know. But it's a simple process. When somebody comes in and hands over their $20 or whatever the admission price is, they sign a book and they tell us what their zip code is, or their street address, and they register. Then guess what? You'll know. It's not rocket science to figure this out. And I get frustrated when I hear commissioners from the day are saying that we don't have a way of knowing how many are from Northport. I be honest with you, I think they don't want to know, John, because that solution you just came up with is very simple. At the end of the day, they can count them up and then do a tally at the end of the week, a tally at the end of the month, and guess what? In 1 year, you'll know how many are residents of Northport. Very simple. Any other questions out there? Another one. Okay. So, in capital improvements, if we bought this, we spent $5.5 million of taxpayers' money to buy an economic engine. We didn't spend $5.5 million to buy a park. Now, they may have taken that money out of park money, but that's not what the residents were told. So stop playing these games about capital improvement. Yeah, you've got a building that you own, you have to maintain it. I get that, but that's an expense. In the real world, that's an expense. Any resident that's out there, if you need a new roof and you say, well, I'm going to write that off as a capital expense. Does magic happen? Does a $10,000 float into your bank account from some magical place? No, it's your money. You have to spend it. I don't care what you call it. It's your money. Well, commissioners, it's our money. Stop spending it like it's yours. Don't tell us it's got an economic engine, and then you can't tell us how it's going to generate income. I'm sorry. Got me on a rant there, John. Don't leave me alone for too long.
Well, and I'm glad you covered me there a little bit. I had some technical difficulties. I had my tablet set up on my dash, and I forgot to cover the back side of it, and it got hot. So I apologize for that. I got it set up now in the AC. Okay. So I'm blowing cool air on the back side of it, so it's going to be fine. But okay. I'm glad you kind of went on to that, because what I was saying before was that I have heard multiple people say that it is operating in the black, and you just elaborated on how businesses actually run. And it is not operating in the black, because you have got to take in Stephanie Gibson, yes, you've got to take in, and she's business. She knows what she's doing there too. So the expenditure of 5.5 and then another 9.2 puts it in the whole $14 million right off the top, almost 15.
Plus another 11 million to develop the park. That's just
Right.
the 9 is just to fix the plumbing and the sewer, and that's it. Now, you know, and here's another, I'm sorry, but let me say this. And Stephanie,
Right.
Great point, Stephanie. And Stephanie has an accounting background. And she works in it, if I'm not mistaken, as in the accounting field. But when it comes to taxpayers' money, you know, Stephanie, you believe in transparency and you fight for transparency and you do a great job at that. Well, let's be transparent about this. It's not a line item that you stick on a ledger sheet somewhere. It's taxpayers' money that's being spent when we need to widen Price Boulevard. We've got other things that have to happen, and we don't have the money. The city is essentially broke right now, from what I understand. So why are we spending this money? There's no return on the investment. Nobody can show me a return on the investment. So we can play accounting games. They do it in the private sector. They do it in the government sector. That's all well and good. I'm asking for an honest, transparent answer as to what are we doing. And when I hear commissioners tell me that we're going to, you know, in order to hook up to the sewer that they're going to put in there, this is how they think. You're going to have to join the city and you're going to have to annex yourself into the city. Well, let's think about this for a minute. Anybody who wants to actually hook up to the water that's in the county side of Ortiz is going to have to annex into the city. So that's your answer to economic development? Because that also says if somebody wants to build a 7-Eleven and they want to tie into the sewer, they can do that. That's economic development being developed by the marketplace, not by the city. There's no plan. So anybody that comes in their mind, it's a benefit because they'll annex into the city and we'll get the tax revenue, but we don't know what they are. You know, my vision for that, and the vision we had with the Northport EDC, was to make it a wellness center. Let's have along that Ortiz corridor, get it annexed into the city, and let's build homeopathic medical. Let's build a destination that people will travel from around the United States and the world to come and visit. And let's make it a health resource. We had hospitals interested in participating because homeopathy is now becoming a part of the regular medical profession. So they're now looking at natural healing processes. So why can't we become a hub for that? Whoop, I'm sorry, that takes vision, that takes a plan. That means somebody has to stand up and tell the residents what this place is going to become. And nobody can tell me that. And she's saying I'm wrong again because you do not have to annex into the city to get the water. That's not what the city manager told me. To get into the sewer, now it may not be, maybe water is going to be different, but for the sewer hookup, you're going to have to annex into the city, but you got to be contingent to the city. So it's a very complex issue. Bottom line is we're spending money, taxpayers' money, with no way of showing how you're going to get it back.
And I want to go back for a second because I'm kind of confused on Stephanie, whether you're okay with the numbers or not okay. The black. My question, Stephanie, is that the number that you want to stick with? Are you going to count any of the debt? I'm just looking at debt in comparison to what they bring in, and it doesn't cover the nut. We've already spent it. It's already gone. That number can't just be wished away into a different account and say, but it's ours. I understand that the park is more valuable today than it was when we bought it. Everything in Northport is right now. So it's a given. Anything that we do to improve it, I'm actually the devil's advocate today, and I'm wondering, did we fix the sewer and everything else because it adds more value to what we've got, which I 100% believe it does, but was that the best way to pay for it? That's my question. And if you've got some more insight, Stephanie, please feel free to keep blasting away. I love it. There's first off, there is your motivator. You want a specific thing there. The city chose otherwise. We are already drawing folks from around the world. Well, yes, we are, but they're already coming here anyway.
Right.
They were coming here prior to the city taking it over. They're already in that section. So my question would be then, what is new? What is new about that? And I've asked the city for the data on how many new residents have been our residents, our city people who are spending the money, taxpayer money. I buy a home from you at $300K and add $100K for a pool. You have a $300,000 asset. You spend cash.
It's not a good comparison.
No, and it's you're still not answering the question, Stephanie. The question is, are you counting the $14 million as an expenditure that we're talking about, or the $15 million that we're talking about? I believe you have to put everything on a piece of paper, run it down side by side, and then come up with a good analysis. If you run a business like that, everybody wants to run their business so it shows your profit. But the minute you go to buy that business and you see fictitious numbers, you're not investing in that business anymore because they made up the truth. So I've heard multiple people on commission talk about the example of debt, and all of them are not on the same page. All of them are not on the same page. So I agree, we still own the value.
Yeah, but John, that's a great sideline, a diversion discussion, because owning the asset, if we're investing in this asset because we plan on selling it and quadrupling our money, then that's something the residents have to know. Okay, because then this argument it's not an argument. Then I'm saying, okay, if that's your game plan, maybe that makes more sense. But when I hear people get up there and say it'll pay for itself, but nobody can tell me how.
Well, put Chuck English's back up there. The cost benefit to justify the expense. Is that what you're talking about here, Peter?
No, I'm talking about spending taxpayers' money, my money, your money, Stephanie, your money, Bill, your money. It's John, your money. It's our money you're spending, and you're telling us, don't worry, it's going to be okay. But we're going to lose $100,000 a year for 30 years. From staff's document, it's open to the public to look at. Stephanie, you know how to get that stuff. It's right there. And this commission voted 3-2 to move forward with a losing proposition. I'm nervous about that. We did that with another thing called the pool. And we were only going to lose $600,000, but no, we lost $800,000. So come on. You can't keep losing money. Sooner or later, it's going to fall on the residents' back. And guess what, folks? Property taxes go up. Now you've got you're protected with your ad valorem taxes, but that's counted. Not the city. The city can triple, quadruple. They can increase your taxes 100-fold. There's no law stating they can't. Well, if they're not going to get the money, where are they going to get it from? You know, they wanted to raise taxes. So a nice way to do it is let's move our electric tax from 2%. They could have gone to 10, but they settled on 5. Is that a tax increase? Hello? Come on. And a tax increase, you got to then ask yourself the question, why are you raising taxes? And the answer is because we don't have enough money to pay for the stuff that we're committing to. Then put the brakes on War Mineral Springs. Sell it. Get rid of it. It's a losing asset. Your staff told you that. Sell it to somebody that knows how to run it and make a profit.
And it's funny because I don't think you really want them to sell War Mineral Springs.
No, I don't. But I don't want to lose money.
That's your point. And actually, you want it to generate funds, correct? To help
I wanted to cover its expense. I'll settle for that. So it doesn't cost taxpayers any money. If you're going to say we're going to invest $10 million and we're going to get it back in 10 years, I'm willing to listen to that story. But I'm looking at a staff document that says we're going to lose $100,000 a year for 30 years. And guess what? In year 30, we're still losing 100,000. So I don't know how far out that goes. It's just perpetually losing money. If that's the case, and that's the best you can do, I'd say sell it to somebody that knows how to run it.
Well, you would sell it and get your money back 10 times because it's worth that right now.
Yes, and you'd get the tax income generated from the property. Because right now, guess how much that pays in property taxes? Zero. Because it's owned by the government.
I still love the answer. It already covers operating expenses.
It does not.
But you're not calculating all the debt. When you buy a piece of property, and Stephanie, when you buy a piece of property, that's automatic debt. That's just the purchase of $5 million. Okay, so we're $5 million in the hole. Now we're operating in the black because you went to a different account system, and you said, yeah, but this doesn't count towards the operating side. You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth and think it's okay. We're asking a very simple question. If you calculated the whole debt, is it profitable at the end? And I don't think it is. It's operating in the red because you have to count the whole debt.
That's right. If I purchased that property and it cost me $5.5 million and it cost me $2 million a year to operate it, I'd factor that $5 million in over a 10-year period or whatever, that I would pay it back, so I would be running truly in the black in year 11. We don't do that. And it's just they're playing with accounting numbers here. They're just playing with accounting systems. But I keep going back, and John, you got it somewhere on here, or on one of your staff there, if they can put up the screen that shows a loss. So show me what else you got, if that's not it. And in the private sector, the way they operate is, if you have a piece of property or a particular product that you want to show whether it's profitable or not, you buy and sell back services within other departments. So I'll buy some of product management, I'll buy some of accounting, I'll buy some of this, but it shows up on a ledger sheet for that particular activity. We should do the same thing with War Mineral Springs. Who's mowing the lawn? Who's the service calls that are going out there? Who's covering all of that? And it gets washed into these general funds and you don't see it. But if you really put those numbers together and added in the debt we've incurred already, there's no way that's making money.
Well, once again, I love the activity because it shows the divide. Stephanie, I really appreciate you, Chuck. I appreciate you being part of the show and chiming in, because we can't get anywhere if everybody is not kind of settling in a little bit into a neutral stance, so to speak. There's give and take on both sides. I understand completely where Stephanie's coming from, and she's 100% correct when she states some of these things. But on this side where you're talking, you're 100% correct too. But there's middle ground that has to come into play. I'm confused by the vote. I really am. As somebody who's listened to all sides, I think the biggest thing we have to kind of settle in on is, once again, the pool's built. We got to talk good about it. They just spent the money to do War Mineral Springs. How do we move forward from here? Where does it go now? Is it going to be another $11 million to make it a park to draw the same amount of people? Or are we forecasting something totally different? If then where's the market plan?
And John, even if with what they've got in the master plan to build, None of it generates money.
No.
So I don't care what you do, it doesn't generate income. So where are you going to pay for this from? Now there's talk about, they say they want to put in a little restaurant. I mean, come on, this is chump change compared with what they're spending.
And the truth of the matter is, this is an asset for the city, and it's one of our few assets in the city that we really need to exploit, so to speak. And it needs to be an anchor. It really does, because it is that special. If you know anything about Warm Mineral Springs and the value it brings, I'm not a proponent, and I know you're not a proponent of getting rid of it. There just has to be something better out there that can be talked about on a neutral playing field that gets people's points across.
Well, and John, I'm going to say something now, and it's strictly my opinion, but it's based on the history that I've seen. And I can tell you, I've been personally involved with almost all of the commissioners, if not, with the exception maybe of Alice White. There have been P3s that would cost the city zero to do what they're looking to do. And they keep coming up with reasons not to pursue it. I'm not going to bring any more P3s in front of this commission. It's an embarrassment. I hate to say it. I believe there is an agenda to make it a park. And no matter what happens, it's going to become a park. And then they can say whatever they want surrounding it on what its potential is. They've got no intention to reach that potential. And if they do, they have an obligation to let the residents know. And I'll be happy to sit down with any commissioner face to face and have that conversation. But they back away. They don't want to talk about that.
Well, I gotta believe that even with Stephanie's involvement now, she's along the same lines, talking the same logic that is profitable. I 100% believe as long as you use the numbers in the game that they're using, you can honestly believe that it's operating in the red, because you're only using the operating budget to prove it. And so it's a very simple task. I just wish I could do my budget at home the same way, because I have more money in the bank than I've ever had. So it's just that everyday people don't do that. And I think that's maybe the confusion, is that there's a lot of things happening out there with expenditures. And it seems like we're spending, like right now, at an all-time high. There, one P3 that was brought to the city.
Stephanie, if you want to meet with me privately, I'll be happy to share with you what I've shown to Jill, what I've shown to Debbie, what I've shown to Barbara, what I've shown to Pete. Okay? I personally brought them in front of them. I'm not going to bring them in front of you unless you speak for them. Maybe you do. I don't know. But I have personally brought every one of these commissioners solutions. They do not follow through on them. And the next thing I know, they came in and they said it was going to be, and Stephanie, spent some time on this. How did they say it was going to be a workshop and then change it right before the event so that they can vote on this? 2 commissioners entered that with no knowledge that it was going to be voted. They were going to make votes on it. They came in to discuss solutions. How did that happen, Stephanie? You're the person with transparency. Why aren't you looking at that? So I'm challenging Stephanie. Anyway.
That's all right. And listen, Stephanie's an avid listener, and she's extremely involved. And everybody, I think everybody needs to, at some point, step back and reassess along those lines. Brian Lincoln, thank you. Less than 1% of Northport residents have paid to visit Warm Mineral Springs the year 2020 and 2021, according to Parks and Rec.
And we're going to make this a park.
And again, I don't know that number's, even with the expenditures that you're talking about doing right now with this vote. Brian, is there any forecast, or Peter or Stephanie, Is there any forecast that any of the 77,000 people are going to increase to 2%? I'm just wondering. Let's see. I'm not sure what that means, Stephanie. I like the number, but I'm not sure what that number means.
Let's use Stephanie's analogy. I buy a house for $300,000. I invest $100,000 in it and build a pool. So now my house is maybe worth $325,000, right? It went up in value because I have a pool. So I say to myself, you know what? I'm going to invest another $100,000 and build a little garden in the back. So now it goes up maybe to $350,000, but now I've invested $500,000. But you want to know something? Maybe I should invest another $100,000, okay? Because and it'll go up another $25,000 in value. But guess what? You're always behind. You're constantly behind. When do you factor in the lump sums you're putting out into your profitability? And government doesn't. And I'm surprised at Stephanie. That's funny money. When you're talking in those kind of equations, that's funny. It's funny money. It never adds up.
Well, I don't want to call it funny. What I think, I understand that, but I think that when you're talked to in regards to look at these numbers, this is our operating expense, and that's what everyone's basing profitability on. It's really easy to ignore the rest of it. And I think what you're trying to do, if I'm not mistaken, is blow it up and say, but there's the bigger picture. And it includes all the numbers. Because profitability, I agree with her. They're with the data that they're providing, they are 100% profitable. I also agree with you that if it's funny money, then it's funny numbers. And I've never, on this side of it, as a citizen, let alone a show host, I've never understood how you could spend $5 million and think I'm okay because it's profitable and I didn't cover the expenditure yet of the $5 million.
So, John, here's the deal then. Ask everybody out there and everybody you talk to about War Mineral Springs. Tell them to look at the fiscal impact statement. It's one page. It's not complex. It shows income and expense. For 30 years, it shows $100,000 loss each and every year, and it's higher than $100,000. That comes from staff. This is the document they presented to the commission. And 3 out of 5 commissioners, maybe 4, voted to move forward. I don't get that. As a resident, I'm concerned when you're seeing numbers like that. And if it's not true, then give me the real numbers. And I've yet to get somebody to give me that.
Go ahead and read that question, Peter.
I say it.
Go ahead and read it out loud.
Oh, visitation from Northport residents may increase with a revitalized spa and a cafe that's open, but the increase is negligible as the only reason to go to the park is the springs. Massage and food are a subset of those visits. They're not going to pay off $20 million plus the operating expenses year after year for 30 years.
No, and really the vision originally for War Mineral Springs was not the vision that's being voted on today.
That's right.
And that's the history that people know. I've had Vanessa on, talked about it. She was part of the initial vote to bring War Mineral Springs here, and it's not being presented today as it was then. And the reason that is commissions change out, and they change the whole dynamic of what was supposed to be. And then they forget the history and they lump it in because they have forgotten the history of what the original commission purchased it for. And it was not the path that we're going down.
No. And
they
John,
didn't want expenditure.
I'd even accept it as a park. I'm okay with that. If that's what the commission wants to have, God bless them, go for it. Just don't take the money out of my pocketbook. Figure out a way to get the people who are visiting it to pay for it. But we're generating a beautiful park for out-of-country visitors to a large degree. And it's my dollars you're spending. So figure out a way to get it to pay for itself. I don't know, raise the admission price to $50 or $100 or something. If it's so good, they're willing to pay for it, let them pay for it. Don't come back and tell the Northport residents that we have to pay for it and we're never going to make a profit. And Stephanie, that's from the staff's mouth to the listeners. Look that up on the February meeting when they discussed it. I think that's the plan you're looking at over here. But there was a document that was attached to the staff's presentation, and there was a one-page fiscal impact statement. I've yet to have a commissioner tell me that it's any different than that. I don't think it's in that document. I might be wrong, but.
Well, I know that's all about Warm River Springs, the involvement. And so,
that's Kimberly Horn's presentation.
Yeah, let's go back and talk about the fact that most of the people, and this was right out of Pete's mouth, Commissioner Emmerich, when he saw people in the crowd, most of them were not Northport citizens. They were unincorporated Sarasota County citizens because they're in that zone over there.
Yep.
And those are 100%. Those are the people that support Warm River Springs. It's the other 99% of Northport that either doesn't know it's there or does know it's there and doesn't see a value in it. And I'm agreeing with the fact that we need to do something there because it is a value to the city. It is something we should wrap our hands around. There's got to be a way to do this and yet not burden taxpayers.
We put a plan together, and I keep repeating it, but I think it bears mentioning, with the EDC. That was a boutique resort that was there. It was only going to be 200 rooms on 2 floors. But what was really interesting, and nobody picked up on it, was there were going to be 2 conference centers that Northport residents can have weddings in, that can have graduation parties in, that have a place where you can have catered food brought in. We don't have many places like that in Northport. You have Heron Creek, that's it. Everybody goes to Plantation in Venice. That's tax revenue. Plus, the residents would have had the opportunity to participate in the equestrian setup that was going to be built into that, into the natural gardens that was going to be built into that. And it would have been a first-class operation. And it would have paid itself. It would have paid for itself. But here's the bottom line is they want it to be a park. That's it. All the plans of the money we spend with Kimberly Horn, we probably spend $300,000-$400,000 with them right now, constantly changing the plan to add that. And what we're going to have is a bird watching tower and some walking paths on the 60 acres. None of it generates revenue or anything significant enough to offset the cost that we're paying for this. The residents are going to find out when their tax bill comes, and they're going to say, what happened? And the answer is going to have to be, pay attention. Your commission is selling the city out from under you. We need commissioners who understand how to put a business plan together and follow through on it. We need a city manager that understands it. And right now we're evaluating city managers. We have an opportunity to get the right city manager in. Let's get somebody who's got some experience with a city that's at least our size, if not bigger.
What's the value? And I'm going to ask you this because you brought the city manager into it, and I know that there's probably over 100 applicants at this point. What would be the value that a strong city manager would bring?
A strong city manager, the number one thing they're going to bring is they're going to know how to do something or who to call to figure out how to do it. That's what a strong manager does. They know where to go to get the answers, and they know how to get things done. And they're going to challenge the commission. They're going to tell the commission, you're moving down a path that's going to cost taxpayers too much money. You're moving down a path that we can't justify.
Do we have that voice today, right now?
No.
How long's it been since we haven't had that voice?
I think we had a voice like that, or the potential for that. One of the best city managers we had was Jonathan Lewis in the county, picked him away from us.
Okay, so it's been since Lewis?
Yeah, commissioners should, yeah. I mean, Pete Lear came in. Pete was a finance manager. That was what he did. That's his top of his career. And we put him in charge of the fastest growing city in the Tri-County area. No experience. So who did he call all the time? Jonathan Lewis. But Jonathan now, his obligation is to the county, not to Northport anymore. We had a shot. The biggest mistake this commission made was not considering Marty Black. That guy knows the city. He was the guy that put West Villages together. He understands planning. He worked for Kimley Horn. He was a city manager for the city of Venice. He knows his stuff. He's highly sought after. They should have hired him as the interim for a year. And I'm not going to talk about it on radio, but the city had tremendous opportunity to get it. And Marty cares about this area. He knows it intimately. He could have fixed things real fast. He didn't have a learning curve. He'd hit it running. I don't think this commission wants somebody like that, or at least some of the commissioners. They want somebody they can control, that they know more than the city manager does. I want a city manager who knows 100 times more than me.
So let me ask you this, because our government is totally unique here from most governments everywhere else. The city manager, if you had the Marty Blacks of the world, let's say we get lucky and we find one, what's going to change with this current commission on how they vote?
I don't think nothing will change with this commission, but I think the voters in what is it, next year, have a chance to put some good commissioners in play that will work with a good city manager. You know, the form of government we have is a city management form of government. Now, somewhere somebody changed on the charter a city manager and city commission. It's a city manager. That's the guy that runs the show. The commission's there for policy. We've got commissioners running the day-to-day. They nickel and dime everything that's going on. And part of the reason is experience. There's not a commissioner up there, with the exception of Barbara Langdon, who had staff working for them of any significance. They've never managed a budget of any significance. This is all brand new stuff to them, and they're guiding our future. Now, let me say this. I think every single one of them have Northport in their heart. I think they're good people. They're just not qualified. And mistakes are being made, and it's costing the taxpayers money. And that's got to change.
With the current status that we are at right now, citizens don't get involved immediately.
That's right.
Where do you see it going?
If the citizens don't get involved, I think this city is headed for some major problems. I think it will wind up with major tax increases. People who like living in Northport because it's affordable will no longer be able to live in Northport. You know, you don't just come in with a new commission and erase all the mistakes that are being made right now. You don't just erase the commitments that are being made right now. So we're going to have to live with whatever these commissioners vote to do right now. We're going to have to live with that for the next 5 or 10 years. So
let me ask you this, because we're on short time, but next month it's going to be a special time because we've got Chuck and yourself going to be on at the same time.
Oh, great.
And truthfully, you guys have a lot in common, and you have a lot of different ideas. a little bit different concepts along the same lines as Stephanie. I really appreciated the involvement, and Brian Lincoln, I really appreciated your involvement today. And I think it's good that everybody is at least getting involved. I wish that each of us at this point could go out and get 50 people and say, get involved. Just get involved. Just learn more about what's going on. I think that's probably our biggest problem within our city right now is there are good people who know what's going on. There are good people on both sides of options that are out there that know exactly what they want to have happen. The number is so small, it's not funny, and we don't influence anyone outside of those small groups and the city commission. We don't even make an impact in our own county with our voting because we don't have involvement from the start, and we've got to keep everyone really pushing forward and get them involved. I think the biggest thing that we're doing now is we're having open dialogue about decisions that are being made, and it is getting people involved on both sides. But there's got to be some common ground in there also. I like your idea of checking and seeing how that meeting got flipped. I've heard both sides of the story. And usually when there's both sides of a story, there's something in the middle. Yep. They do. John Cook, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Yes, they need to learn how to vote. And listen, it's not who you vote. It's just go vote. Yeah. Learn to pull the trigger on the vote.
Yeah, but John,
it matters.
But it also matters to know who you're voting for and make sure you vote for the right people.
I understand, but if we can get them to the voting booth, there's some responsibility that comes with that. We've got to encourage people to just vote, and the conscience will take over. I hope, but we can't say go vote as long as you're educated, because that's the barrier that we're up against. But we've got listen, less than 30 seconds. Peter Bartolotta, I can't wait until the fourth Friday of next month because I know it's going to be a fireball too. And thank you so much. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but everybody be safe out there. It is going to be an awesome weekend. Just go enjoy yourself. Be safe. Keep it slow on the roads and stay out of the hospitals. Let's talk again on Monday. I look forward to it. This is John Rawlings with Peter Bartolotta saying Real Talk 97.5. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Thanks, Peter.